Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and we are glad to be here on a Tuesday night. Just like we said yesterday, and we've been saying for about a week or so, every Tuesday night we're going to go live from 7 to 9, talk all things Ravens. We'll get into some NFL news and things like that. But really, I mean, we know what we're all here for, talk about our Baltimore Ravens. So that's what we're planning on doing. We're going to start this thing off, Glenn, by getting into the Ravens offseason draft and free agency strategy and priorities, what we think that those things should be. But before we do, guys, we want to make sure that you stay up to date, whether our shows are live or we put out a new video when news breaks. So go ahead, take a second. We'll stay here. We're not going anywhere. Hit the subscribe button and make sure to get in the chat. We noticed a couple of times, I think, that it takes a little bit of time for the chat to be up and working. So when you hop in, go ahead and hop into the chat and make sure that it's working and rolling and we communicate with you guys, because we get a lot from you guys, and that's kind of why we're doing this, to be able to communicate with you guys and take your questions on and things like that. So Glenn,
yeah,
the Ravens offseason, I mean, we got a lot to do, but we're also right there. I feel like we're knocking on the door, right?
Yeah, this isn't no rebuild year, Jimbo. This is reloading up and getting ready to make a run. Okay, so the things I want to go through is, before free agency gets kicked off, obviously before the draft, I want to talk about what everyone's top positional priorities are. We know that typically the Ravens are one of those teams that like to kind of plug up as many holes as they can before the draft. That way they can, in theory, stick to that best player available draft strategy that they've always claimed to. Now, obviously, team need does play a role, as much as they may not want to admit it. It absolutely plays a role. But that's why I think that they're going to look to shore up as many holes in free agency so they can be a little bit more free to get the best guy. So, Jimmy, I want to start with you here, and I want to know, with your first one, what is, and it doesn't have to be necessarily in order, but I just want like top 3 positional priorities that you want to go for. And I want your first one, not in any order, just your first one.
In free agency, right? Because we're talking prior draft. We want to plug up holes, like you said.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to go, if I'm going, now, like you said, this is a free agency thing. I think that I'm going with offensive line. Okay. I'm going with offensive line because I think that it can take, not in all cases, I mean, we've seen guys come in, plug and play right away the rookie year, but I think it can be a little trickier to come into the Ravens type scheme, Ravens system, and have an impact right away. And like you said, we're in win now mode. So I think my priority number one in offseason, guys, might be boring. It might not be wide receiver or somebody who's catching the ball or even touching the ball, unless he's Tyree Phillips. But yeah, I'm saying offensive line, interior offensive line. What about you?
So center guard. Okay.
Yeah, center guard. Yep.
Well, to me, I think before the season started, it may have been an underrated loss to me, at least. Like when we lost Hayden Hurst, we didn't lose him, but when the Ravens decided to honor his wishes and trade him to a team where he could be the number one guy, and trading him to Atlanta and getting the second round pick, and of course drafting Dobbins with that pick, I was happy with the way they were able to flip him and get that high of a pick, turn that into Dobbins. I was pretty happy, but with Boyle going down and Ricard forced to step into a more prominent role as a tight end, it really showed me that I think we miss that extra versatile tight end, a guy that can catch balls down the field and do more than just block. Now, I want this guy to be able to block, but I think what we're missing is that playmaking tight end that Hayden Hurst was. Now, you might look at the statistics and say that he didn't, necessarily light up the stat sheet, but what he did do was very important. I mean, he created mismatch problems all over the place with his speed, athleticism, and then the ability to also block just made him that much tougher. So I think that in this system, I know it may seem a little strange because most systems, if you got one really good tight end and then you got a pretty darn good one in Boyle right behind him, I think that most teams be like, well, we're okay at that position, but not here in Baltimore, in my opinion. I think you need 3 quality tight ends, and I think you need, more importantly, a good mix of them. I think we all agree that Andrews is primarily a pass-catching tight end. Boyle is maybe the best blocking tight end. Well, he has some hands too, but he's maybe the best blocking tight end. Like, I think we need to find that Hayden Hurst guy, that guy that's a good mix between the two, but maybe even favors pass-catching a little bit more. That's my top priority. What do you think?
All right, so let's dig into it real quick before we move on to like second and third tier priorities.
See who's available?
Yeah, so I have a list of a few names here that are considered to be the top tight ends that are available in this year's free agency market.
Okay.
So bear with me here. I just had it and lost it. So give me a second here. I got it right here. All right. Here we go. So I'm going to give you some names. Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Gerald Everett, Rob Gronkowski, which we can kind of cross off the list. He's playing with Brady or he's not playing.
Right.
Jared Cook and Mo Alley Cox. So, I mean, I think it'd be fair to say we want any of those guys, but tell me who you see as, and I think I already know what your answer is going to be, but tell me who you see as reasonable, like, likely to be a type of guy that the Ravens would go after. Not necessarily a wish list, but most likely to land.
Well, I think it's a guy I've been talking about for a little while now. We both have. And I think he'd be affordable. I really like a guy like Mo Alley Cox. I think he's a guy that's a little bit overlooked by most people. He didn't get a ton of looks in Indy last year, but they had a pretty crowded room with Jack Doyle and Trey Burton when he was healthy. Now I don't know how much he brings from an athletic standpoint, but I can tell you he graded out very high according to PFF as a receiver. He's a gigantic man. I think he's like 6'7" or something like that. He's just huge.
Yep.
And
6'7".
I don't know how much speed he can bring, like as far as being helping the vertical passing game. But he's a big body, big catch radius, has strong hands. And more importantly, I just think he's affordable. I think he's just, I there's guys on that list, Jimmy, that I would rather have. I'd rather have a Hunter Henry, but I just think Hunter Henry is going to cost too much money. So I'm trying to be realistic.
Right.
And so that's why I would go with Mo Alley Cox. And I'm just trying to find his, if I can find
market value.
Yeah. If I can find some sort of a market value for him.
Well, the one thing while you do that, the one thing I think is interesting that, to draw the parallel between him and Hayden Hurst that needs to be recognized is a while back, of course, we had Ken McCusick on our show, who's, he's from Film Study Ravens. And he talked about the importance of Hayden Hurst in our running attack was his ability to block at the second level because of his athleticism. Mo Alley Cox now he's much larger than a Hayden Hurst, but being that he is a former basketball, college athlete, and just oozes athleticism just when you watch him on the field. Yep. I wonder if he could take over some of that and fill in some of that Hayden Hurst used to do based on his athleticism. So I love that pick as well. I think that he's a guy that we could get at great value, which Eric DaCosta loves, of course. And any fiscally responsible GM is looking for value. It's not about the money you spend, but it's about the return on that money.
Yep.
So I love that one. And yeah, Hunter Henry would be great. But I agree with you. I think the most realistic on that list would be a Mo Alley Cox. But I want to take another step back because I also have a list of top offensive linemen. And to be honest with you, Glenn, I'm kind of salivating over this list.
Now, are you thinking guard or center? Because I have a list in front of me, but it's divided. So where should I start?
Yeah, well, you could go with I like the centers on this list. So let's go with the centers.
Because I think we got at least one pretty good guard here in Baltimore.
Yeah.
In Bradley Bozeman. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to pull up centers, but go ahead. Let me know if there's one that jumps out.
There's two guys that jump out to me.
Wow, okay.
Alex Mack and Lane Taylor. Alex Mack, of course, was the center down in Atlanta a long time for Matt Ryan. And then Lane Taylor, of course, up in Green Bay. Both the guys are hitting the market. And look, I can guarantee you this.
Alex Mack is 100 years old, but other than that.
look, just to I think at center, you're for lack of a better term, you're the point. I'm not going to say quarterback. You're the point guard of the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
So think of like a Matt Burke. We got him at the end of his career, right? I mean, he obviously retired with the Ravens. So look, I mean, I think that having the right, putting guys in the right position and making the right calls, other than being able to snap the ball, is like job number 2 for a center. 2A and then 2B is obviously block. You need to be able to block. But I think having that veteran leadership up there in the middle and be able to make the right calls and things like that could be a value.
That's true. Now I wonder, I don't have on the site I'm on does not provide a estimated market value for Alex Mack. So I don't, although I'll say this, he's rated the number 1 center. So that worries me that he may, be ring chasing and maybe chase a 1-year deal that might
come to Baltimore then.
I mean, that's true. But if that 1-year deal is $8 million, $9 million, which is what he made last year, was $9 million. I think that might be too expensive. And he is 36 years old. He has had some injuries, but I'll say this: when Atlanta went to their Super Bowl, he was their center, and that line was healthy, and I think that's a big reason why they got there. But just so I'm 100% clear with this, I'm curious to know, when you hear Matt Skura, is that a quick no? I mean,
yes.
Is that okay?
I know that we went through the other information about his win percentage in the pass rush, and
it's phenomenal in the run game and pass game. He has a 96% win rate as a pass blocker, and I think it was an 84% win rate as a run. Both top 10. I think the pass block was top 4. So if he could what if he just cured the yips of snapping the ball incorrectly? I mean, because there was a season where he did not have an issue with snapping the ball. This is a relatively recent issue. If he can get brainwashed, get hypnotized out of whatever's going on in his head that makes him throwing the ball left, right, and over Lamar's head, then would you be more receptive to a return?
I guess this is what I gotta say. Based on those statistics, maybe it isn't a quick no. Maybe it's you can compete in camp. You can compete in camp, and you can show it to us.
Right now, his market value, Jimbo, $10 million per. So I guess that means
take it and run with it, man. Because look, Glenn, what's the difference? I'm going basketball here, but what's the difference between Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook? Why is Russ different than the other two?
Because he relies on explosion.
He can't shoot the rock.
Yeah.
He can't. You know what I mean? Like
he doesn't have the skill level that the other guys has.
You gotta do job one, and then everything else falls into place. That's my opinion. Like if you're a center, job number one is make free throws. Like, for lack of a better term, just hike the ball and get it to your quarterback. Like, if you do nothing else on this play, then do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that. I mean, especially when it's shown now that it leads to your quarterback literally getting knocked out of the game in the most important game of the year, like he did in Buffalo. So we don't want that to happen. But let me ask you this question, because you started off this didn't specify center, and I pulled up, the guards.
Yep.
There's some good guards out there, Jimbo. Now, the worry is how much they're going to cost, because I know you really like the guy out of Washington, Brandon Scherff.
You turned me on to him.
Yeah, and he's a heck of a player. Now, the only issue with Scherff is, of course, how much he's going to cost. He also has a projected market value of $10.9 million.
Hold on. Before you go any further, how is it that him and Skura have the same market value? He's an all-pro. Skura's about to be cut.
That's a good question. Maybe we have to ask Spot Track how they came up with those numbers.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's just crazy to think about, right?
No, that is a little bit, that's higher than I was expecting, but not as high. I was expecting higher maybe for Scherff. And when I see 10.9, I mean, I
think he's 34 though, isn't he, or something like that? Or
30.
Am I over? Oh, he's only 30. Okay.
He's 30. Yeah. He's only 30 years old. He's been in the league 6 years. So, we're still going to get a bunch of good years out of him, but is that cost a little too high for a guard?
I don't think so. Look, my answer is no today, no tomorrow. No. I mean, the way that I want us to be even more dominant in the run game, and having that offensive line is going to make us better in the passing game. If Lamar is comfortable back there, we know what happens when Lamar stops looking downfield, right? I mean, he starts wiggling back there and trying to run around, and he doesn't fall over like a cheap tent like Tom Brady or when Peyton Manning used to when he starts feeling some pressure. But either way, the plays don't end well. Every once in a while, of course. Every once in a while, of course.
He's just so darn good.
Right. But in the passing game, if we want to be a balanced team, we need to be an offensive line, not just to improve the run games. I guess what I'm saying.
No, I agree with you. It's just you said it's your top priority. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you would prefer a $10 million Brandon Scherff over, say, a receiver at the same value. Is that what That's absolutely what I'm saying. Look, I'm going to say this live. Book it, Glenn. I said this before the show started. If we did nothing this offseason in free agency except sign Scherff and retain our guys. You think that's enough?
I'm okay with it, because I know we're going to do stuff in the draft.
Yeah.
But
okay.
If we did nothing else
in free agency, gotcha.
In free agency, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's not just like a specialist pass blocking or specialist run blocker. He does both very, very well. So there's no doubt if you add a guy like Scherf to the offense that it would improve.
Right.
The question is, do you want to spend, $10 million after you already have 19.75 at your left tackle position? Maybe I can see it as a possibility. Okay. All right.
Well,
So
I think that either the chat isn't working or people are incredibly quiet and uninterested in our free agency conversation. So guys, if you're in there, let us know what you think.
yeah.
Tell us what your number one priority is in free agency, not in the draft, but in free agency.
And let me say, I want to go back to tight end because maybe we don't have to look outside this team for a tight end. We talked about this months ago, but it's been brought up again now that the season is over. And Miles Boykin again, not necessarily the strongest season at wide receiver, and he is a big body. He's a very he's got a big frame. He's a very accomplished blocker as a wide receiver, as you will definitely be reminded of if you criticize him on social media. So I think now would be maybe a good time to maybe sit down with Miles Boykin and find out if it's even possible. Maybe sit down with the training staff or something like that and find out if it's possible for him and his frame to put on that kind of size and that kind of weight that maybe we can find the next Darren Waller. Now, look, I know that's a big jump.
Waller 2.0, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. I think that it was definitely premature to bring up that kind of stuff in the beginning of the season. But now that he has an entire season, he came into the league at 6'4", 220. I got to imagine, just because he's a growing man, that he's probably a little heavier than that now. I mean, I would assume with a couple seasons of weight training that maybe he's 225-ish. Say that. I don't see why a guy with a 6'4" frame that looks relatively thin, that he couldn't put on a little bit more muscle, a little bit more weight, and maybe get up to a reasonable size to play tight end. Look, we're never asking him to go inside and be a Nick Boyle and smashing heads, but can he get closer to that Mark Andrews and where he is at least serviceable in the blocking game, where he can at least get in between and his big body is enough to slow a guy down to allow the play to develop? So my question to you, Jimmy, is it crazy to think that they could ask Miles Boykin to pack on a few and become that tight end we're missing?
Oh man, I just said this a second ago, but I really, really want to get comments on this one because the last time we talked about this, people were all over the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
In defense of Miles Boykin as a wide receiver, in favor of him as a tight end. Look, if I'm Miles Boykin, I'm at a crossroads in my career. You got to make one of two choices. One, you got to improve as a wide receiver and say, I'm going to be a wide receiver, but I'm going to be better. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go look at my buddy Claypool. Him and Claypool are good friends up in Pittsburgh and figure out what he's doing right and what I'm doing wrong. Cause I don't think it's just the system. I'm sorry. I don't think it's just the system. Or like you said, sit down, start eating the food, get the raw eggs like Rocky, hit the weight room. And the thing he's got to know at tight end, though, is he'll have a speed advantage. I mean, he ran what, a 4.3?
Oh, yeah. Straight line speed. He's going to be faster than anyone guarding him.
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone talks about Kelsey's speed and Waller's speed. Like can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's undeniable that he would be faster.
Well, Waller ran a heck of a 40 time too, which is why he was brought in for that same reason.
Right. So,
height and speed.
I mean, yeah, so I guess if you're asking me what I would do if I was him, I would say go for it, man, because I think his what he is as a receiver has already been shown. Whether that's the truth. Yeah, whether that's the truth or not, I think the league already has an opinion on him.
Well, that could be the case for sure.
You know what I mean? So
he'd have to do a lot to change that. Yeah.
Just scrap it and go for it, man. I don't know what you got to lose. What do you guys think too? I'm interested to know. Apparently our comments never work because I know people are commenting right now and in like 30 minutes it's going to be like Boykin. We
got to figure a way to fix that.
Sorry, guys.
But no, I mean, so that's interesting. All right. Well, so say the Ravens strike out at the center guard position, Jimbo, and they're forced to try and address that issue in the draft. Is there a secondary position that hasn't been named that you would like to see the Ravens go after?
Still in free agency though, right?
Yeah, still in free agency, but let's just say it didn't work out with any of the guards or centers.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I think my number two, as goofy as this sounds, I think my number two is edge rusher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it has to be. Just take a second to think about this team. We're talking about the offense, but our defense was dominant at the end of the year. But if we lose our depth there, that's a concern for me. So yeah, edge rusher certainly. What about you?
I got to
Or what's
agree
your
with
take
you.
on mine?
No, I that would have been mine. I mean, I look at if now this is like we got to remember that Yannick and Matt Judon are not here right now. So, uh, it's not like you can count on that. So who are you counting to get pass rush from if those guys both find bigger deals elsewhere? I mean, are you really counting on Jalen Ferguson to come in and get sacks
Snack
in
daddy.
big moments? I
Snack
mean,
daddy eating them Lays.
exactly. I don't
Oof.
have confidence in it. And as much as we love Calais and we're happy that he came here to Baltimore, I think his double-digit sack days are behind him. I mean, I just do at his age. And I think he's here for other reasons other than, just getting to the quarterback. So, and I look at Bowser. I mean, even if Bowser's back here in Baltimore, he's never been a big sack guy. I mean, so that doesn't necessarily, I mean, I like the player because I think he's good in cover. He's a versatile guy, but it doesn't really get me excited from a pass rush standpoint. So if those guys are gone, if we can't bring back a Matt Judon or a Yannick Ngakoue, who, I mean, I'm looking at this list right now. I have a list in front of me,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's some guys out there, Jimmy. It's just about who can we afford.
Right.
I mean, so who do you look at anyone? Do you see anyone that you'd like to see the Ravens look at if they can't bring back Yannick or Matt?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, just like we said yesterday, I think that he's not technically on the market right now, but I think JJ is one of those moves that the Ravens make, historically speaking, that make good sense. But who do you have on your list? I'm curious to know if is it ranked based on like, some arbitrary, some statistics.
I think it's ranked by how much they're expected to earn.
Okay, who you got?
But one guy that I think interests me is Leonard Floyd. I mean, he had 10 and a half sacks this past season, 55 total tackles with 31 being solo. He played 95.5% of their snaps, Jimmy. I mean, that's like Terrell Suggs in his prime type numbers. That's old school Ravens football. That's not with Wink where he cycles guys in and out in that front seven. So if he came here, I mean, he certainly wouldn't be playing as many snaps, I would assume. But also what I find interesting.
You see his market value?
Yeah, his market value is about 13. Which
crazy
is
that it's not as high as Yannick and Judon, right?
It is.
That's crazy to me.
No, I agree with you. I think that what might be hurting his market value slightly is that he played with such good talent around him that may give the perception that he benefited greatly from Aaron Donald, the greatest defensive player in the league right now.
Michael
next
Brockers
to him. Yeah, he's had good talent around him, and he's had a heck of a secondary with Jalen Ramsey leading the way behind him, which of course we know that coverage helps pass rush. So maybe that's what hurt him. I mean, I don't know. I haven't watched enough of them. I've watched obviously playoff games and big time national games. But I mean, that's a name that could excite me. And at 13 million, if they can't get one of those other guys back, and this is his market value. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what he's going to get. He could not be happy with the value of the market that he's receiving. And he could decide to sign a 1-year prove-it deal for maybe even a little bit less than this.
Well, let me ask you this: what about another guy from the Rams? If I'm not mistaken, he's on. Geez whiz. He is an unrestricted free agent this year, and that's Fowler. He's a high drafted guy. At the end of his contract this year as well. I didn't follow his stats this year, but I know he's had moments. Unless he's injured and I'm missing something, but that's another guy that is from the same organization. Cheap. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I like your Fowler. I mean, I love. Look, if we had 25 million, spend 15 on Fowler and 10 on Scherf.
Yeah,
but then we couldn't retain our other guys.
Yeah, that, and honestly, I know that a lot of fans want to see offense get some more help financially and not get kind of brushed aside like a lot of people feel the offense has been. I mean, when you look at how much money they're putting into the defense and the offense, it's pretty lopsided. Now, a lot of that's because they've hit on some draft picks on the offensive side of the ball and missed on some on defense. Excuse me, and that forces you to sign guys as free agents. But just looking at the list, there's also some lower level guys that I think could be, decent deal. I'm looking at, let's see, what is Hassan Reddick supposed to get? Because I liked Hassan Reddick when he was coming out of college. He ended up getting drafted by the Cardinals. He's got a projected value of $11 million. I think he's got talent. He's a fast linebacker. He had 12 and a half sacks last year, Jimmy. 63 total tackles with 43 being solo. He had 5 forced fumbles last year, Jimbo. So
what is it about him that you think that pushes his value down in comparison to a Judon or a Unique? How old is he?
He's a young man. He's coming off his rookie
deal. Yeah, it's contract, right?
He's 26 years old, so same age as Unique. Let me see if I can pull up his. I'm going to pull up his PFF. And
it's interesting, though, isn't it?
It is interesting because how do they? I mean, I don't think that these guys are just pulling these projections out of thin air. I think they're basing it in some sort of. I don't exactly know what they're basing it on out of, but let's see. Oh, I think I understand why. When I look up PFF, he seems to be quite a pass rush specialist, if I'm reading this correctly, at a very high, at an 82.6 pass rush grade, but just a 56 run defense.
I think that something like that would turn the Ravens off. Not that it wouldn't happen, but something like that would turn the Ravens off. But if it's cool,
but here's the thing: if you can bring Pernell McPhee back for a cheap deal to be your run guy, which we saw the way he was handling Derrick Henry in that playoff. I mean, he was impressive, man. So if he can be your rundown guy, and then this guy can come in and be a more pass rush, or he's just fast. I mean, you can use him in a lot of different ways because of his athleticism. I think it's a possibility, and you could get him for a little bit cheaper. So
yeah, and the other thing too is I've said this before. I think that stopping the run is more about a desire, in my opinion.
I agree. It's just especially if you have the height and weight.
Right. Like if you just try in basketball, if you just try to play defense, you're going to improve as a defender. Like, yeah, some people are incredibly instinctive on the defensive end, but just try.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same way with stopping the run. I could be totally wrong, but I think a lot of
I agree. Effort comes into it. Yeah. I mean,
but I wanted to ask you about a couple of these questions here. This is from Lindsay.
How are you getting questions? I'm not seeing any questions.
You're not getting any questions?
Oh, there they go.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. No, for sure. And if we miss any of them, hit them up, hit us up again.
Just to clarify for Josh Myers, the JJ Watt right now is expected to be released because of his wishes. And the reason they're doing that is because of all the community work. They're expected right now to release him so he can pick his own team rather than be hamstrung by whatever trade Houston comes up with. So that's why we're saying that JJ, although right now he's technically still on Houston, the expectation is he will be released. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jimbo.
Yeah, absolutely. And then somebody, Sean Conley reminded me, and he's right, that Fowler's in Atlanta and signed a 3-year deal. So
look at you, Jimbo. This is why they're here, to keep us straight.
I know. But I like I want to address Lindsay's question about who we expect. Now we're going off topic here, but who we expect Lamar Jackson's backup to be next season.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Huntley, baby, number 2, straight out of Utah.
This is not a good question for Jimbo. He is definitely biased to his alma mater. I mean, there's no doubt he's going to go with Tyler Huntley. Yeah.
But look, I know that there are a lot of people that love Trace McSorley. But if you want to know it, not that Trace doesn't have a ton of great college tape, but if you want to build some confidence in Tyler Huntley, go watch his college tape, man. This kid can sling it. I think he's already become more explosive. Just in the plays that I've seen him run with the Ravens, he never moved like that when he was at Utah. He's definitely gotten stronger, definitely gotten faster, and gotten healthier. He was banged up all through college. So absolutely, I think Huntley. The other thing that I've always liked about him is he's composed. Look, he came in the playoff game, and he didn't self-destruct.
No.
The moment was not too big for him. And in fact, I like seeing him take the checkdowns.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would have liked to see him hit that throw to Hollywood.
Yes.
I'm not going to lie, but I think you're right. I think more importantly is the moment. I mean, he had to have been crapping himself going into that game. I mean, this is a guy who, doesn't even get a ton of reps in practice, much less, he's getting thrust into a playoff game in freezing rain against a Bills team that, they look pretty good that day. So, no, I agree. I think he's definitely the leader in the clubhouse right now with McSorley obviously battling for it. But I think either one of those guys, I think Trace McSorley is a guy that could be squeezed through to the practice squad. I mean, it's not unreasonable. There's a lot of teams out there. In fact, most teams don't keep 3 quarterbacks. So, I would prefer if they went into camp and into the season next year with just 2 on the roster and make room for other guys, because of the fact that Lamar has been so healthy throughout his career, and the fact that Tyler Huntley's shown that if he's thrown into the game in the third quarter, he can do enough. And certainly with a full offseason and preseason games, which we're hopeful that will be back this year, I think he'll perform fine. And then you could use that extra roster spot to sneak in an extra wide receiver, an extra corner, an extra member of the front 7, an extra lineman, which we saw became very important. So, I think Tyler Huntley is going to be the leader in the clubhouse right now. Absolutely.
Yeah. And another question we got was, will we live stream during the draft? And the answer is yes, yes, yes.
Oh man, I'm going to have to be on my best behavior.
I mean, I can't wait.
I get fired up. I love, as much as I'm devastated anytime the Ravens lose before, and they don't win their last game, being of course, the Super Bowl. But at the same time, I love the offseason stuff. I'm a junkie for this type of stuff. I love, talking about, can this guy fit in? Can we, I would love to be a fly on the wall in those cap meetings with Pat Moriarty and all those boys over at the Castle. That would be a blast too. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about this, but let's see. Shane comes into the chat. He's talking, he's asking about some receivers, but he's specifically talking about the draft. Now I have seen some mocks, but to be honest with you, we haven't dove into the draft analysis quite yet and watched a bunch of tape, just because it's still so far out. But I think, was it Mel Kiper? He had, let's see who he had. He had somebody
kid out of LSU, right?
Yeah, the 6'3" possession receiver out of LSU. And what was exciting about him is that he was the number 1 red zone. Let me give you his name, actually. Terrence Marshall Jr. He's a 6'3", 201-pound receiver out of LSU. He ranked 3rd in the SEC in receiving yards with 731. He scored 23 touchdowns in just 19 games played. And the biggest thing for me is, this is what we've been talking about for a while. He had an 80.7 red zone grade, which was the highest in all Power 5. So all the Power 5 conferences, he was the number 1 red zone threat at the receiver position, which is exactly what we need here in Baltimore to run opposite of Hollywood and to help, free up some space for Mark Andrews, who right now is our primary red zone threat through the air. So I think that type of guy, I don't know, I haven't watched a ton of tape. This is just Mel Kiper's last, which of course, Mel Kiper's pretty good at nailing the Baltimore predictions, considering he has all his connections in Baltimore. He lives right up the street from me, actually. Yeah. Not too far, and was born and raised here. He's a Ravens fan. So typically, the
land of pleasant living.
That's right. And if you want to go to somebody who you think is the most informed on the Ravens, I would look to Mel. And
other than us.
Well, of course. I mean, Jimbo, we got our ear on the ground. What is it? Ear on the ground? What is it?
Ear on the ground, baby.
There it is. I got to go to you. As the chat always reminds us, you have all the 1960s sayings down. But yeah.
All right. So before we keep going down this path, I've noticed we've got a couple people that have already just typed in Zach Ertz.
Yes.
That's it. So I want to address this way. We talked about your number 1 priority in free agency, not
playmaking tight end. Yes.
Still talking about free agency. I know there have been some questions about the draft. Focus on that. Is tight end.
Yeah.
He's expected to be released.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, a lot of media members seem to watch our show and have picked up on the fact that you guys know, faithful members of the show, that Glenn and I have been saying that Eric DaCosta likes to invest money where there seems to be a lower ceiling at those positions. So at tight end, he could get a better return on investment for, say, 8 to $12 million a year than he could on a receiver for that same money.
Yeah.
Right.
And in our offense, tight end might be more important. I mean, It's going to be.
So if they're going to spend money in free agency on a pass catcher, I can very well see it happening at the tight end position. So Glenn, let me ask you, what do you think about the possibility and the fit of a guy like Zach Ertz? And my computer's about to die, so I'm going to plug in my charger. I'll be back.
Okay. All right. Well, to me, Zach Ertz is not too far removed from being, arguably the best tight end in the league. I think he was no question top 3 just a couple years ago, especially when before what's the quarterback? Wentz started losing his mind and losing.
He got
his
space
position.
jammed.
Space Jam.
He did.
What do you mean Space Jam?
So like Brian, or who's the kid from? Allen. Josh Allen took the basketball, went to Carson Wentz,
took his
made him
powers
touch
away.
the ball, and just took his powers and turned. He's what Carson Wentz was, and now Carson is what Josh Allen was. It's
what he wants to be. Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's just. Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of funny how that happened. I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It had to have been personality. But anyway, let's not get into Carson Wentz and why he's falling apart. But let's just talk about what Zach Ertz has been. Now, look, last season was a kind of a fluke season. We talked about that. I'm not going to buy into that. Who Zach Ertz is now, but from 2017, 18, and 19, he was a Pro Bowler all 3 years. He had at least 6. He had 8 touchdowns, 8, and then 6. So obviously he's proven red zone threat. He went over 1,000 yards in 2018, almost got to 1,200. Darn near barely missed 1,000 in 19. I mean, his catch percentage is mid 60s or higher. Last year was just 50%, just abysmal. But I think he would be a fantastic add to this team. I mean, you talk about he's 6'5", he's 250 pounds, so he's not like he's a small guy. He can, I'm sure, block as well as catch, and at least block to the effectiveness of a Mark Andrews. He would be a fantastic add. The question is, can we fit him?
How old is he right now? Do you know?
He's just 30 years old, Jimbo. He's not, he's especially nowadays at that position. That's not over the hill just yet. He's still got quite a few good years of football in him. I think he would be a fantastic, smart guy. And let's not forget, Jimmy, that relationships matter amongst teams. And the Ravens and the Eagles have shown they have a good working relationship. They've worked out trades in the past. And I don't think that's to be overlooked, because typically if you look at our trades, they're with the same 5 teams. It's just how it works out. So I think he would be a great add. We've been talking about him for a while. I don't think he's really thrilled with being still in Philly. I think he'd probably rather go to a team that's a little closer to maybe competing again. But yeah, I think Ertz would be a great add. What do you think?
But now he's got 1 year left, I think, at $14 million on his deal, and it's not guaranteed. So a lot of people are thinking
he could probably get released, just like exactly,
just like
another guy. Yep. And D Money, I don't know if you're just now getting here, but Mo Alley Cox was a guy we mentioned earlier, and we would love to see him brought in. He could get brought in at a much lower cost than a lot of these guys.
Yeah, and the other thing, well, I don't want to get too far down the road with receivers, but I guess we'll get into that.
But let me ask you this, because Adi Mahmoud, I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, he mentioned that the one way that Eric DeCosta could separate himself further from Ozzie is
I like it.
Back-to-back first-round LSU guys, which, of course, he's talking about when he's talking about Terrence Marshall. But also, couldn't he further separate himself from Ozzie by drafting a Pro Bowl wide receiver, something Ozzie it kind of eluded him, one of the few positions he wasn't able to get a really good player. What are your thoughts on, do you think that motivates him at all, or do you think that just the mindset change from Eric DeCosta from Ozzie could make it to where we actually could see a Pro Bowl receiver drafted here in Baltimore sometime shortly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Eric said it best. I think it was like his first offseason. He said, I just want more at bats at receiver. So I think that Eric is confident in his ability in most drafts to say, I don't need to get a receiver in the first round to get a Pro Bowl receiver.
Right.
I think he feels like he can get a 3rd, 4th, 5th round guy. I mean, look, Matt Judon is a 5th rounder. Mark Andrews a 3rd rounder. Not Nick Boyle. Orlando Brown a 3rd round. I mean, he's got plenty of guys on his resume later in the draft outside of the first round that have turned into Pro Bowlers. Now, not a receiver, right. But yeah, I think that in general the shift is just going to be at bats. It's going to let's get 2 or 3 of them, each year, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think the shift is.
But I'm hoping, while I love Duvernay and I appreciate him and Prochet and what they brought to the team, are you kind of hoping that they maybe take some of those at bats higher in the draft rather than waiting till that?
Well, I think that 3rd round is okay. I think that there's still a lot of value at 3rd round. In the 3rd, think about it. AJ Brown and DK Metcalf are both 2nd rounders, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think Ty Hill's a 5th rounder. So yeah, you can find.
Well, he had other issues as to why he was a 5th rounder.
Some off the field stuff, but yeah, I mean, all I know is that if you let down a list, there is a bunch of guys you can find late. But at the same time, if you look at, I'm sure if you looked in history, typically they're at one of the top of the.
But this is my question, and we'll get to this later, guys, as it gets close to the draft. But I think the only way the Ravens go with a guy in the first round I mean, I guess they did with Marquise. And, if you find a guy that, I mean, Julio Jones is a generational player, but a guy that is a surefire, like checks all the boxes, and his floor is already very high. His floor, as in the worst he can be, is already very high. Then I see him pulling the trigger. But I like that. I like the kid at LSU as much as I've seen in the stats that I've read. We're going to dig into that more, certainly. But
yeah.
So we've talked about our first, secondary. How does this word go? Tertiary, the third.
That's a big word, Jimmy. I
mean, our third priority. Let's give our third of three, and then we'll move over to the draft because I don't think they'll exactly line up before we dig into it. So, Glenn, as far as free agency goes, before we move over to the draft, third priority for you in this year's free agency. If your number one was tight end, your second was edge rusher, and whether that's retaining or obtaining a new guy.
Right.
What's your third?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been looking for that big-time possession receiver for quite some time. We're hoping Boykin would be that guy. Doesn't look like he is. Des Bryant was brought in to maybe be that guy, but now he's back as a free agent, and there's some questions whether he's going to come back. I'm hopeful. I see some people in the chat. I know Allen Robinson recently liked a tweet that was about his interest, coming to join the Ravens. And I agree that he's probably going to like every tweet from every team that says that because he wants to get paid the most. And he's certainly not going to be burning any bridges. And anyone wants to pay him $20 million to come play receiver, I'm sure he'll come. But there's just no chance we're going to get one of those top guys. I would be absolutely stunned. I don't think there's any chance. So
look, you know what? If the Ravens get a receiver that they pay over $18 million a year,
I think you can go lower than that.
I will shave my head live. Shave it. Look, you guys see this? I will shave it live.
Couldn't that affect your job? I mean, your boss might have something to say about that.
I won't go skin, but I'll go number one. Right? Just all the way down to the old noggin. That's how confident I am in your statement.
Yeah, they're not going after any of those big name guys, but there are some guys out there that could be gotten. I want to ask your name or ask your opinion on a couple of these guys. I look at someone like a Corey Davis out of Tennessee. I believe he had a career year this year in receptions and receiving yards. Obviously, it benefits him playing opposite A.J. Brown and having Derrick Henry in the backfield and running play action off of it. But he's right now a projected market value just under $9.8 million per year. He fits the bill as far as, being that possession type receiver, tough guy. When you hear a guy like Corey Davis, I mean, let me just see what he did last year. I do have his, if my computer would catch up properly. I believe he had 83. There it goes. It's catching up. Yeah, he had 65 catches. On 92 targets for 984 yards and 5 touchdowns. Only one drop, Jimmy, is what I'm seeing. So, I mean, he looks like the type of guy that we could, use here in Baltimore. What are your thoughts on Corey?
Well, he loses some value for me because he's a Titan. But
he wouldn't be a Titan any longer.
Right, but trying to separate my emotions from the situation, which is, of course, is necessary. I like it. I'm not in love with it.
Okay.
I don't know. To be honest, if I had to pick between him and Zach Ertz, because they probably fetch the same amount of money.
Well, look, that was my one priority. So we agree there that would be my. But as far as outside guys,
no, yeah, I'm with you. But let me. I mean, I like him. I would be okay with it depending on what they give him per year. Okay. Did you already mention what his per year market value is?
Yeah, it was 9.8.
Okay, so. I mean, that's a decent deal. I just don't know if he can be relied on because I feel like he didn't start coming on until they got A.J. Brown.
Well, also they had some quarterback issues.
Quarterbacks.
They had Mariota there for a while who just wasn't getting it done.
Right. But I just don't know how much faith I have in him, as I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it didn't help that he finished this past game actually on the sideline. Now, I think he was dinged up. I think he may have gotten his bell rung a little bit, but that's a possibility is all I'm saying. Now, another guy who I think would be an interesting and this is a guy I want to know, I think we could get on the cheap, and here's why. Will Fuller, he's just 26 years old. He's a big-time, big threat receiver as far as the deep ball. He hasn't been able to stay healthy, but here's the big issue. He's suspended for the first 6 games of this upcoming season due to a violation of the NFL's policy on performance-enhancing substances. That's obviously going to drive down his market value. Right now, he has a predicted market value of 16.9. I find it hard to believe that he is going to get anywhere near that when you're missing the first 6 games and you struggle to stay healthy. So my thought process is, and tell me if I'm crazy, Jimmy, that maybe this would be a perfect guy for that 1-year deal that could be willing to accept a lower deal to prove it and say, look, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to a team that looks like right now they've had a good track record as of late in keeping their guys healthy, especially if you look at them compared to other teams. I could play with a young up and coming phenom quarterback like Lamar Jackson, and maybe increase my value and then hit that big one the following season. What are your thoughts on him?
I like that a lot too. And I forgot the last time you mentioned that yesterday about the suspension so he has a suspension coming up in this season as well.
6 games.
So it's a 12-game suspension?
Yeah, it's a carryover from last year. Remember he killed my brother's fantasy team when he went out because this guy was on fire. I mean, last year he was problems for teams.
I mean, he didn't kill just fantasy. I mean, he killed Deshaun Watson season. He killed the Texans. I mean,
he did. Yeah.
Now, one thing I want to say is that somebody, let's see who it is. Cam Wee mentioned that Sammy Watkins runs a high 4.3 and he's kind of a possession receiver. Now, something interesting is I read a report from SI, the top 100 free agents available in the NFL, regardless of position. There's only one that they are predicting the Ravens will sign. Excuse me, not SI, PFF. There's only one that they're predicting the Ravens will sign, and that's Sammy Watkins to a 3-year, $30 million deal, $21 million guaranteed.
Wow. Interesting. So what would that be? It's 3 for what?
30. $10 million a year.
Okay. So that's reasonable. I mean, it's not insane, right? I think that's let me see if I can pull him up here. No, I think that's a reasonable thought. I mean, look, the issues, a lot of the same issues with him and Fuller is that he can't stay healthy.
Right.
But look, when he's on the field, the guy is he's a blur. He can run by almost any corner in the league if he's healthy. Now that's a big if though, Jimmy. I mean, this guy has shown a lot of years where he's just been dinged up, man. That's the only thing that worries me. But like you said, 10 million is a little pricey for him because of the injury issues. I think we could get him for cheaper than that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think because his deal was surprisingly large. His initial deal with Kansas City, I felt like because he was coming off an injury previous to that. So I don't think that'll happen twice. I think that, because he hasn't done a ton to contribute in Kansas City.
He had I think a 1 year. He made $9 million last year.
That previous deal though, right? Wasn't it pretty substantial?
Oh yeah, the previous one was. Yeah,
right.
I'm just looking at this year's.
Right.
But yeah, I mean that would be definitely a guy that they could consider. But yeah, I don't think some people aren't thrilled with him because of his injury history, and I get that. I mean, I see like father, like son say, please no. He plays 5 to 6 games a year, and I get that. I don't get a big sense that if you look at the history of the guys that the Ravens tend to pick up, they tend to go after guys that are relatively healthy. So, yeah, that one would surprise me. I guess Will Fuller would be in the same ballpark there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, if any of you guys, if we miss any of your questions, like I said, put them in there twice. And if you're really adamant, go ahead and do a super chat and we'll be sure to answer it. Mm-hmm. So we are for sale. No, I'm totally kidding.
Now, what about Julio Jones? He's been linked now to the Ravens. This isn't the first time we've heard about it. We actually got crushed for even making a video about the link because the link wasn't strong enough, apparently.
Right.
But again, I seen his name popped up again. He's the type of player that doesn't seem to want to be around. Well, I don't know if it's on him, but I could understand why a player like him wouldn't want to necessarily stick around for another rebuild at his age. So he's 31 years old. He's about to turn 32. I don't even know what it would take to get him, but what are your thoughts when you hear about Julio Jones? What do you think?
Yeah, so actually, I think it's more realistic this coming year, because if I'm not mistaken, that big hit that he would have left, it was like $20 million in dead money. If we would have made that trade last year, would not be the same in the new season.
Okay.
So they would absorb a lot less of that. So, and in fact, I'm really glad it's funny. It's like you're reading my mind here, Glenn, because if we do get a really blue blood, number one bona fide receiver, it will be via trade. I firmly believe that. That is the way we will get it done. Because I don't think we have the cap space. I think we can, we have some tradable assets. Obviously, Orlando Brown, we've talked about him ad nauseum at this point. Mm-hmm. He's not necessarily the happiest camper in the world. And I think we got some pieces. So if we get it done, man, I would love to see monstrous Julio Jones running out of the locker room in purple and white and black with the helmet on. Big old number 11. James Prochet. Sorry, dude. Got to change your number, bro. Because
for that guy.
Julio is showing up. So, that would be awesome. I mean, I would not shave my head, but I would lose my mind if we got Julio Jones, certainly.
Yeah, I'd be excited, but I just don't, I don't know. I don't know enough about the details to know if it's fiscally responsible for the Ravens, if it's even possible. But it's definitely something to think about. All right. So do you agree with me? That's my third priority. Was that the same as yours? Did you have a different one?
No.
Okay. So you were thinking the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. Now let's move over to the draft. I don't think all of our answers are the same here. So really my question is this, Glenn. I'll read you the picks that we got. Mm-hmm. So we have as it stands without any trades or anything like that, which you can pretty much guarantee.
There's going to be comp picks. There's going to be stuff.
Yeah. But as it stands right now, we have the 27th, we have the 58th, we have the 122nd. That's a 4th rounder. We have 184th, 6th rounder. Am I missing something here? We have more than that.
No, I think that might be
1, 2, 3, 4. No, we have more than 4 picks.
Yeah, we got 6.
Yeah, we had 6 picks this year. We got a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and 2 6s.
Yeah, I believe that's
what we got. Yeah. No 7th, and no 5th.
Those are the same as undrafted guys to me. I mean, you'd like to hit there, but look, Geno Stone didn't even make it through a whole season here. And I think he was our 7th round pick last year. So, and actually, I think they traded back into the draft to get him. So I'm sure they were probably disappointed to see Houston steal him up off the practice squad and sign him to their roster. So, I mean, what do you?
Yeah. So talk to me here. There? Yeah. So my question is, knowing that we have the ammunition that we have, and we haven't broken down the board. So this is all I want to know. How do you want to see the Ravens attack it as far as priorities go inside the draft? We haven't looked at the depth of the positions and things like that, but give me just based on how they played last year, where do you want them to improve in the draft?
Well, you know what? I'm going to come back to this one because we just had a super chat come in.
Oh, shoot.
So we're going to prioritize Adam 78, and we appreciate. Thanks a lot. Since the Ravens are cheap receiver signings, Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark, Alan Lazard, T.Y. Hilton, they're all free agents. So I can tell you one thing. When the last Green Bay game I watched, I saw Lazard. No thanks. I mean, that guy.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, to me, that guy gets no separation. If he didn't have Aaron Rodgers, who may have the best arm in the NFL history, So I'm big against Lazard. I think if Lazard is on a team with anyone else, that his numbers will suffer. But let's look at some of these other guys because I think DJ Chark is interesting. LSU guy. I think he's been playing in Jacksonville for quite some time now. He's a thought. He's a big body guy. What are your thoughts on a guy like DJ Chark?
I like Chark, and I think the way that you can get a good deal is that he's played for a losing franchise, so I don't think his value is quite there. He hasn't had a ton of exposure. He hasn't played in these big time playoff games or even big time primetime games. I mean, they went 1-15. They won their
first game and
they lost all the rest.
I remember seeing a tweet that was brought back to my attention from there that said 1 is not enough after their first win. That was what their team tweeted out. Well, I guess it wasn't.
Oh man, some tweets do not age very well. But you know what I think is interesting? Kind of jumping ahead here. Eric DaCosta in his season-ending presser said wide receivers come in all shapes and sizes. Mm-hmm. Right? Hollywood Brown, we know, has his physical limitations, but he also has his physical attributes and his speed. I mean, when you see a guy like Adoree Jackson 10 yards off the line because he respects Hollywood's speed so much, the kid's got wheels. So the reason I bring that up is because T.Y. Hilton has been proven he can be a number one while he's not the biggest guy.
True.
So it would be interesting. It kind of makes me think of the Bills, when they went out and signed John Brown and they got, Beasley, when they got
Cole
Beasley in
Beasley,
in the same offseason, right? They had like the smallest average height in wide receiver in the NFL.
Well, look, I mean, most of the receivers in Kansas City that do their thing aren't necessarily towers out there. Right. I mean, Kelsey's a big boy, but other than that.
Right. And so to me, it would be interesting to see a guy like Ty and a guy like, I mean, plug any of these guys in with, but Ty to me is the most exciting. I would be the most excited about him.
But Ty has been so banged up, man. It drives me crazy. And now I want to say this, though. DJ Chark is still under contract right now, as if what I'm seeing is correct. So we would have to give up something. But I would definitely assume that unless they plan on extending him, that they would be receptive to a trade. And that's a team that we've made trades. Obviously, we just got Calais Campbell not too long ago. So I think that's a good one. But as far as Ty, I love his speed. I love all that, but man, I just don't know if I want to take a chance on giving
Didn't
a guy.
Didn't you have Ty on your fantasy team?
No, not this year.
I thought you did.
No.
I was about to say, now I know why you're cold on Ty.
You're talking to the best fantasy. You think I would have a guy who gets hurt on my fantasy team? What do you think? This is my first year? I mean, I'm no rookie here. You know what I mean?
I made it to the championship round.
You did. That was impressive. Yeah, that was impressive.
Second year ever in fantasy.
Yeah, but I was the number 1 overall seed. And we won't talk about what happened once I got in the playoffs. But anyway, no, I think that Ty is certainly a guy that would be an idea. But again, if he can stay healthy, and I personally, I would say I don't want to bank on that. So,
but this is the thing, Glenn. No. Don't you think that any of these signings that we make with a wide receiver in free agency are going to have to be with a caveat? Like whether it's a Ty, because if not, they're going to be too expensive, right? They're either going to be not good enough to what we want, not get us excited to be the type of player that we want, or they're not going to be they're going to be too expensive, right? So the only way to get a guy that's good enough, that's not too expensive, you got to have a caveat. That's why I think, like, I know that you're not high right now on AJ Green. Same thing. It didn't seem like he had much left in the tank, but I really believe
want to left in the tank,
right? Yeah, there wasn't much desire there, and I think that had all to do with the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, you spent 12 years there, or whatever, however long he's been there, 11 years. I think, we're going to end up getting a guy like this, a Ty, a Sammy Watkins, that has that baggage, if you will, because I don't think we can get, whether it's age or injury, it's going to be one of the two.
Well, I mean, there's one other guy that was brought up in the same comment, and that's Nelson Aguilar, and he had a pretty nice season last year as a bounce back after he was kind of ran out of Philly for some bad drops.
Yeah, he was catching all those babies.
That's right. He had 48 catches, 896 yards for 8 touchdowns with an 8.7 yards per catch average, which is, that's phenomenal. That's what you want on a big play, a big threat receiver. And right now, his market value is right around $9 million. So not crazy. And you might be able to get him for cheaper than that if it's one of these 1-year deals, because he's still just 27 years old. He's not necessarily an old man. But yeah, I think Nelson Aguilar is definitely a guy. But I will say this: after Brashad Perryman, if you have questionable hands, I don't know if Eric DeCosta is going to want to bring you in. But like I said, he did bounce back and have a pretty good season last year for the Raiders. So, but
isn't Brashad a free agent?
Don't even say his name in this house. What's the matter with you? I like Bob Money saying, "Can y'all just please take Jimmy G?" And I know you're paying, because a good buddy of ours is done with Jimmy G. He's ready to run him out of town. But I think the Niners, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with their quarterback position, because I think it's funny. He just led them to a Super Bowl. I mean, not too long ago. Now, he didn't have the greatest second half in that Super Bowl, but I don't know.
Look, man, if I'm San Francisco, I'm going all in for Deshaun Watson. All in for Deshaun.
But if it takes, now I know that the golf contract definitely increased they had to kick out some to take on that contract in Detroit, but 2 1s and a 3 for a 32-year-old Matt Stafford. What's it going to take to get a Deshaun Watson in his prime? 3 1s and a 3? I mean,
or maybe some of that young talent off the D line. I mean, I'm just trying to think outside the box here, especially if they're losing JJ. But yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting. Now, all right, so backing up here. I agree with you. I guess so. Let's just do this real quick. Let's order them. So I guess for me, it's Ty and then Aguilar and then Chark, who is still under contract, but we'll add him into this to this to this equation, and then Lazard. Do you have the same order, or do you prefer Aguilar over Ty?
Yeah, I think right now at this point in their career, I prefer Aguilar over T.Y. Hilton, which is it's just weird to say that, but yeah, I think after this past season and just where they are in the career, I think I'd switch those two. But hey, B James, he says hey back. B James always in our comments. We
Absolutely
like to hear from him. Now AJ Green seems to be kind of a hot or cold here. It seems like some people really don't want to see AJ Green. And I wonder if that's personality or maybe just his reputation, because he never had a bad personality, but he's just burned the Ravens a lot on the field. And maybe that's just some fans not willing to accept him in purple. And I understand that. But let's get back to some of the draft as far as where you want to see them prioritize as far, those top picks, because I don't know if you remember, Jimmy, I'm going to toot my own horn here. That I predicted that we would take a linebacker, and that forced you to eat the hottest hot sauce on Hot Ones.
Yeah, go back and watch it. It was brutal. Yeah. I died.
Hey, look, he got off easy. I ate about 10 of those darn things when I did the challenge, and that was violent. He got off easy with just one, but hey, he was a man of his word. He ate it nonetheless. But I've correctly predicted that we would take an inside linebacker, as you predicted we would take a center. So I want to know, Jimmy, what's your predictions? I know it's early and we haven't gotten into all the tape and all that stuff yet, but what are your predictions on where they'll go at center this year? Are you doubling down, Jimbo?
No, you mean where they'll go early? You're asking, will they go at center again? Right.
Yeah, in the first round. Where are they going?
So I just, Glenn, before I give my answer, I got to let all our viewers know I'm calling you out right here live.
Why?
Because I always throw you curveballs, and then now you're throwing me a curveball.
How? I mean, you said we were going over draft position, right? Or priority?
Yeah. Okay.
So this would be like your top priority in the draft with number one pick.
Yeah, it's a good thing I'm good on my feet. So, so yeah, I'm going to say this: interior offensive line. And yes, I think it. I thought last year we were going with Cesar Ruiz. I think we would have better off to do so still to this day, but I say no more. Yes. Center is where I'll go. I'll double down. Center is we just need a dog up there, man, that can run the ship. If we're not getting Alex Mack, heck.
Well, the good thing about if you're going for center, we're drafting late. Would you say 28?
27. Yep.
27. So
we can get the best center in the draft in most scenarios.
Most of the times at that point you can get the best one. Now, I think you could also get the best tight end at 28. I think you could maybe even get him later. I think you could get maybe the best center in the second round too. But to me, I'm a tight end guy. I think that this offense missed him, so I'm hoping tight end. But if not, all I want is offense. I love that we're a defense first team, but I want to see some capital getting pushed towards the offensive side of the ball. I think we've spent enough money on the defensive side, and it's about time to start rewarding Lamar Jackson and this offense with some weaponry, and that's what I really want, weapons.
Yeah, and so the reason I was confused by your question, Glenn, is because I thought you were asking me to say who. I misunderstood your question, so I got you. Yeah, but I'm glad we're both on the same page there. We want offense early. I'm just tired of John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta getting up there and feeding me this idea that Matt Skura and Pat McCarry, undrafted guys for a reason, can hold it down on the offensive line and be served. I don't want it anymore, guys. Don't get up there and do it again. If you do, I will reach through the television and make you pay for it. Okay? Don't feed. Look, Ravens flock is not dumb. We know football. Okay? They were undrafted for a reason. Don't sit here and tell me that they can just do the job of a guy we would have gotten in the first round. No. I don't want it anymore, Glenn. Dag nabbit.
Now, unfortunately, what I'm seeing, if I just pull up there's 1,000 mocks already out there, depending on where you look. I'm starting to see some of these guys going a little bit earlier than I was expecting. I see the top tight end right now is somebody, let me give credit where it's due. Koyet Carter mentioned that Pitts, who is the odds-on favorite to be the top tight end out of Florida to be taken in the draft. Right now, his projection is to be taken at 13 to replace Hunter Henry over in LA to play for the Chargers. So I could definitely see that.
Well, that would be interesting. I don't think Hunter Henry's going to leave. Do you? I don't think they let him walk.
I don't know, man. I mean, he hasn't had. I don't think he's lived up to the hype of what he was supposed to be when they drafted him. A lot of that's been due to injury, but at some point, I mean, you got to stay on the field and you got to perform. Now they do have a young quarterback, so typically a young quarterback you want to pair with them some young weapons, and a young tight end is a good weapon to start with. But yeah, I mean, look, if he's already projecting to go that high, I think that the chances of him making it to 27 are probably pretty low, and I understand why. But let's see, the right now the projections are that we're going to take a 6'5" lineman who has been mentioned in our chat. Actually, let me give credit there. Let's see, where was it? It was back a little bit. Okay, D Money mentioned Creed.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that's who is Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma, 6'5", 320-pound lineman. I don't know.
You know, we like Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a center. I mean, so this is a guy that I think you would be happy to see us bring in. We've had luck with Oklahoma guys, like you mentioned, with Orlando Brown in the past, and obviously Mark Andrews, even though he's not the same position.
And Marquise and Powers is coming on.
That's true. So it seems like Oklahoma's coming out to really challenge everyone and being O-line U, right? I mean, they're cranking out O-linemen. Mm-hmm. Of course, they're putting out pretty much every position lately. They've been pretty good. But would you be happy to hear a 6'5", 320-pound center coming to town?
Glenn. Yes. Yeah, I mean that would be like Christmas morning, man. I would be so excited to get a guy. And I think it's funny that Cam Wee said said let it go. We're getting a veteran center in free agency. So I hope you're right, but I hope it's Alex Mack. I don't want a vet that we got on the roster now.
Old.
I'm just sick of the free agent guy, or sorry, the undrafted free agent guys that we developed. I don't want it anymore, Glenn. I just don't want it. But I've spoken about that ad nauseum. At this point, I'm surprised you're not tired of me talking about centers because it's not the funnest thing to talk about. Okay, so mine's interior offensive line, yours tight end, right?
I mean, really, it's just about
weapons.
Weapons.
Okay.
A weapon. So whether that's through a tight end or wide receiver, I'd be happy. But I do think that the tight end position showed its value when we lost Hurst this past offseason.
So where's your second?
Wow. Well, I mean, I guess if I could break that into two, I would say, those are 1, 2, because I want weapons in both spots. I do want a receiver and a tight end brought in. But if not, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I want to dominate in the trenches. And I want capital directed towards the offensive side of the ball. So although I could see a scenario where we would be light at pass rush, I still find, I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping that we can find pass rush later in the draft, and that we could go offense either way. So I'm thinking interior offensive line and then weaponry as so offensive weapon is number 1, and then interior offensive line, whether it be, I'd prefer it be center, but I could also see us grabbing a right guard, and I would be very happy with that. But yeah, I would agree. But I think edge rush is right there with it, man.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was going to say. So my number 2 in the draft is wide receiver. And I'll just give you
We don't have a lot of needs. That's the problem here in Baltimore. I mean, that's the problem for this game, this scenario game we're playing, is that there's just not a lot of needs on our roster, which is really a good problem to have.
Right. It's really about retention and then fill in the few needs that we do have. But my number 3 in the draft is certainly pass rush.
Okay. All right.
Because the chances of us retaining all those guys, and then on top of that, duplicating or even being even better than last year is not very likely, right? Like being McPhee at the end of the season, like he was last year, next year, it's just every year I feel like we get with him, it's like icing on the cake because he's not he's no spring chicken, as they say, right?
No, but I mean, I think, yeah, he would be the perfect guy to bring back just because, what he does off the field and on the field as well. But what do you think about Blake Fleischer? He mentions finally what we've been talking about forever.
I know,
Is there
Blake.
Any chance in this offseason we finally see Bozeman go to center and see what it looks like?
Look at my face, Glenn. No, trust me, Blake. We are with you, man. We've been talking about this since how long? I mean, since we started the show.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand it. He's an all-American center, and you don't even play him there. You want to have your best 5. But at some point, if you're finding it easier to draft guards later in the draft, then plug him in at center, right? And let those, like Bredesen, maybe he's not ready to play center. Maybe he could be a guard. Some of these other guys.
Powers.
But
Powers showed to be at least very proficient in the run game.
yeah.
So
I just don't get it. He is. I don't get it. I have no words, Glenn. I don't get it.
Okay. Well, obviously they like him at guard. Look, there's no doubt he's turned himself into a much better guard than I think a lot of people were expecting. Some people thought he was going to be a bust in the league. So shout out to him, but yeah, I agree. It's frustrating.
I have a question for you, and I'm going to put you on the spot for real.
Oh, great.
What would be the biggest surprise for you in this draft to say, wow, I did not see that coming? Say like in the first 3 rounds, if the Ravens did X, it would surprise you the most.
Well, I'm not going to say quarterback because that's easy. Obviously.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah, that would just be ludicrous.
Yeah, so let's just take that off.
And we're not the Philadelphia Eagles, guys.
Yeah, I think to me, the shocking move would be corner. We got so much invested in corner with Peters, Humphrey, Tavon, Jimmy Smith. They're all expected to return. I don't even know how, even if you draft a guy, how he makes the team. When you think about how Anthony Averett pretty much turned it up a notch at the end, I'm already at 5 right there. And that's not including any of the other guys that are still on the roster. So I would be absolutely stunned there. But yeah, I'll get your answer, and then I have a question for you.
All right. So
what would be your stunner?
One of the things I was thinking about initially that I thought would be really stunning, but now I'm not feeling as stunned about. So I'll tell you that at first I thought, man, if we go running back again, like in the top 3, I'd be surprised. But then at the same time, I don't know. I don't know if I'm that surprised. So my number 1 would be inside linebacker. If we went again and said, Patrick, we aren't feeling too good about you.
Even though, surprisingly, he graded out as one of the worst rookies in the league, him and Tyree Phillips, which, kind of hurt to see that.
Yeah, no, certainly. So
you're still confident enough he's going to be our guy? Okay.
Yeah, because I think that what they'll attribute that to is no offseason. No ramp up at all. It's just go.
Yeah.
Right. And he's such a young guy where he was only 1-year starter, came in as a running back into college.
Right. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot out in front of him for sure. So what do you got for me?
To me, my question is, what are your thoughts on safety? I know we were impressed with Deshaun Elliott. He stepped up with Earl going out the door. He stayed healthy all season. He was not the liability some were expecting him to be in coverage. But I think it's safe to say we still don't necessarily have that classic center fielder that can go out and attack the ball. I know we're never going to see another Ed Reed, but maybe someone who a poor man's version of that, someone who can
a middle class Ed Reed.
Yeah, can patrol the middle of the field and be a threat that quarterbacks have to keep an eye on if they're going to attack the seams. What do you think about if they could use one of those high picks to get a typical, back end, deep cover safety? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that would be awesome. When I was going through my head as far as surprises, I was thinking maybe safety wouldn't be that much of a surprise. So yeah, I would. Look, this is the thing. I think Chuck is a bona fide starter, and Deshaun has done well. But trust me, if they got a crack at the best safety in the draft at 27th pick, and he's a rangy ball hawking guy, they're gonna snatch him up and say, Deshaun, back to the bench, buddy. Like it's gonna be that simple.
Now, but let me ask you this though. I don't know. I would necessarily put Chuck Clark on the bench.
The reason I said it's because of the contract.
Yeah, I understand. But who would you rather be your inbox safety, Chuck Clark or Deshaun Elliott?
Deshaun Elliott, but Chuck also wears the green dot.
That could be adjusted in the offseason.
Yeah, well.
But no, I agree with you. He's smarts, but I just wonder is his smarts enough?
You're right, because Deshaun, he jumped off the screen in a number of times this year.
Yeah.
Where you were like, look out.
Yeah,
he's seeking.
He hit Henry a couple times and made him shake the cobwebs out. So absolutely. So I think that's interesting. But I'm going to switch topics just a little bit here, and we can get back to this if that's, we have to. But I want to ask you a quick question. The defense, we give a lot of credit. They played phenomenal in the playoffs. They were good all year. Wink obviously is, we're very happy that he's still in Baltimore and not moving on and not being promoted. I think it's safe to say that the Anthony Weaver addition is a possible replacement for him if he is promoted to a head coach elsewhere. I think he makes sense, being as though he had his first shot in Houston and he is a young guy. I certainly don't see Rob Ryan taking over as our DC, although He would
It
be
could happen.
done it before. But let me ask you this. Does it worry you at all? Or, I mean, when you see our D-line coach, he's gone. Joe Collin goes to DC, the Jags. Inside linebacker coach, Mike McDonald, he goes to DC at Michigan for the Wolverines. DB coach Jesse Minner, he goes to DC at Vanderbilt. Assistant D-line coach Sterling Lucas, he goes and joins Joe Collin with the Jags, as well as former linebacker Zach Orr. He's also joining them. And then coaching analyst Brian Duker, he leaves and he goes and joins the Lions staff. So let me ask you this. Is there any worry that with all these coaches leaving that there could be some sort of dip in performance and that maybe these replacements aren't as good as the guys leaving?
I'm not concerned about it for a couple reasons. I think that, and you guys could argue me on this point, I think that John Harbaugh, he said before he doesn't recruit. John Harbaugh, as far as like free agents go. But I think John Harbaugh is the best recruiter of coaches in the NFL. I think the Baltimore Ravens, like all these jobs put up, best place to work in the United States. This company was rated as, I think the Ravens are the best place to work if you're a coach in the NFL. I think it's got to be the Ravens and the Chiefs. I'd much rather be in Baltimore than Kansas City. Just my personal opinion. I'm a little biased, but
just a little.
Yeah, just a little. But so I think John is a great recruiter of coaches. And I think guys want to learn from John. He's a great groomer as well, just like Andy Reid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not super nervous about it. And the other thing too is, the saying, the fish rots from the head down. So like, as long as Martindale's there, now if he left, that's going to be, a point of contention or a point of concern for me. Inevitably it will happen. It always does, but that will get me a little more concerned than these other guys. So I think John's gonna reshuffle. I think he's been grooming guys that we don't even know about that'll be given opportunities to step right in there. And I think some young guys will be discovered. So I'm not too concerned about it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the replacements. I think if they would have brought in guys that had a little background, maybe I'd be a little bit more concerned. But when I see the names like Rob Ryan, who's been in this league for 150 years, who's his father pretty much invented, or he did invent an entire formation with the 46 back with the Bears and of course with the Eagles. His brother Rex Ryan, I mean, he is maybe my favorite TV personality. I love Rex. He's a goofball. But more importantly, he's another brilliant defensive mind. And I'm sure that if Rob Ryan had any, not that he would have many questions because he's been around just as long, but if he did, he has the entire Ryan family at his disposal, I'm sure. So, and then Anthony Weaver being a former Raven and obviously never leaving the game after he retired because he got right into coaching. I'm confident that they replaced him with good guys. So I'm happy. And I agree with you. I think John Harbaugh is probably the favorite coach to play for because he doesn't step on any of your toes defensively, offensively. And some people say that that's a negative for John, but as you know, Jimmy, that's a big positive in my book. I think him and Mike Tomlin are one of the few guys that lets, their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator actually call plays. And I think that's a good thing for them. It keeps them open to do their job as the head coach and make all those game time decisions. So I agree with you. I think he's definitely staying here. But I saw another question that I find interesting. We talked about how this is a year where people are, where teams are looking to save money anywhere they can. So do you see any chance that LJ Fort could get cut to save that $2.5 million in cap space? That question is from Blake Fleischer.
Yeah, Blake, I think that LJ Fort has been proven to be one of the best value contracts in the NFL. I think is the value that he brings to this team and would bring to any other team. No, I don't see it happening. I think he is secure in his position. And, he does it all. I think he is the best open field tackler on our team.
Yeah,
the way that he took down Derrick Henry in that pivotal moment in the red zone, held them to nothing. If I'm not mistaken, that was a 4th down, right?
Which one? Oh, yeah. No, well, you talking about right in the red zone?
Yeah.
I think it was either 3rd or 4th down.
But either way, it was him and Henry. And that was it. He wasn't getting reinforcements.
And it was so fast how he eliminated. It was not even a question. He was boom right on the ground. So
yeah, it was like when you lasso like a cat. He just took him out. It was incredible. So no, I think LJ Fort is secure. I don't think it would be worth, if you're gonna give up $2.5 million. I think there's a ton of other places we can go find it before I would go knocking on LJ Fort's door.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he proved his value 10 times over. He's a fantastic special teamer to go along with it. So I think he's going to be in Baltimore certainly for at least one more year. Now, another question that came up in the chat from Nana Rave. Nana Rave 8 is not a fan of Giro, and she's not alone in that. And then Adam 78 proposed a good question. Do you think if there's, another scenario where the Ravens don't advance to the AFC Championship or beyond, is Greg Roman? I guess the caveat would be it would have to be, another situation where the Ravens once again don't reach that 20-point mark that they've
right. Like, what if it's our defense that just gets blown out of the water?
Yeah, I mean, if we lose a 45-44 game, I don't think that teams are going to be, or I don't think fans are going to be screaming for Roman to get fired. Although I would be shocked to see us give up that many points in the playoffs, judging by how we performed in the last two playoff games. But if they aren't able to get to that 20-point mark, which they seem to always get to in the regular season, have yet to get there under Lamar in the playoffs, 0-4 so far, do you see there's any way Roman's back, or is he definitely out of here? And could Harbaugh be with him and out the door with him and go down, kind of with Roman?
Yeah, I mean, I could see Greg being gone, but I don't see John being gone at all. And then, I mean, that's just my basic opinion. I think that the Ravens are all about consistency. Look how long we were pretty much paying 2 GMs to make sure we kept Eric in the holster because we had this transition plan. I think it would be unlikely and uncharacteristic of the Ravens to let go of John in a situation where we make we get into the division round of the playoffs and we lose again. But I could see Greg Roman being gone. Similar in some ways to what they do. Now, I think the Ravens are quicker to pull the trigger than Pittsburgh. But in Pittsburgh, it seems like they never blame Tomlin. They just rotate through OCs and DCs.
Well, fans do.
But I mean, like the organization, they're like,
right.
Well, we're not getting rid of Tomlin, but we'll just make sure we swap out his OC and his DC.
Well, the thing and the thing that separates them two for me, because I like Tomlin, I think Tomlin's a good.
Yeah,
but to me, Tomlin has had way too many locker room and off the field issues between Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, now Juju Smith-Schuster. We just don't hear about that in Baltimore now. Whether that's on him because I don't know how much he's involved in bringing in the personnel, or I don't, we're not in the locker room to know exactly what type of culture is being in there, but. The Juju thing went on way too long. I mean, it's unreal that it went on as long as it did with him acting a fool. That certainly would not be acceptable here in Baltimore. So I think that he's even, honestly, in my opinion, although he's one Super Bowl, I think shy of his, I think John's up there even higher in his leadership and the culture. People underestimate the culture that he's created here in Baltimore.
Well, no, Tomlin's only got one.
Oh, does he only have one? He went to one.
Yeah.
He went to one other, right? He lost to
the Packers.
The Packers, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but he's never had a losing. I mean, look, he's got all the accomplishments you could ask for. But to me, the culture he's brought here in Baltimore is second to none. And I don't think that can be – people overlook that. Just like they overlook Lamar's rushing. It's the same way with his leadership and the culture he brings. Oh, yeah, Lamar runs a lot. But let's talk about what he doesn't do well. It's always – and the same thing with him. They go – yeah, he's a great leader, great culture, great great motivator, but he doesn't have his own game plan offensively. And it's like, well, let's not brush all the great stuff he does just to talk about, some of his shortcomings, which I think are very limited. His shortcomings are very, very small.
I'm with you 100%. And then the idea of Bieniemy as a candidate.
But go ahead. I'm sorry, but I got off track talking about John because I see a lot of people banging on John. I'm a big John guy, but as far as Roman, absolutely he's out of here.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a bad offensive performance, you're saying,
right? Yeah, if they don't get to 20 points and their offense looks anything like it did, where they're loading the box and we can't do anything about it and back them off with anything. Heck yeah! I mean, I think that those chirps are going to be starting pretty early on in the season.
One game where we have a bad offensive performance, get him out of here.
Yeah, and especially if John is. I mean, look, we just saw David Culley leave. There's obviously, in theory, at least some, or on paper, at least some openings on the offensive side. Excuse me. If you guys see, just keep on the lookout. If you see the Baltimore Ravens bring in a guy who has OC experience in this league, that's Greg Roman's replacement. That's the guy who will be the interim, play caller if Greg Roman is let go mid-season, which we've seen here in Baltimore, and we've seen it pay off here in Baltimore when Jim Caldwell took over for Cam Cameron and ended up, leading us to the Super Bowl. So it's not something we haven't seen here in Baltimore. I mean, be on the lookout. Like, the same reason I said Anthony Weaver is looking like the odds on, he's probably the guy that's going to be staying late with Wink during meetings, learning the system, because it's only a matter of time. as good as Wink's been, that he's going to get a head coach opportunity. I just feel it, I 100% believe that. So I think if you see us bring in a passing game coordinator and he's a former OC, then that's going to be, Greg Roman will look over his shoulder the same way he was looking, the same way Wink Martindale, I'm sorry, Marty Morningweg was doing the same when Greg Roman was the run game coordinator. And next thing you know, he's the OC. So I think and if it was Bieniemy, I would be overjoyed. I mean, I don't think Bieniemy will come here as an OC. I think if he came here, it would be I think they were saying as head coach. Yeah, I mean, man.
I'll tell you what's happened.
Guy, man.
I'm with you 100%. I'm with you 100%. I it would be hard for me to come off of John Harbaugh because you're absolutely right. Culture is everything. Isn't everything. You need talent.
I mean, look, when they cut Earl Thomas, wasn't that
that's what I was gonna say?
Culture over something. What was
yeah, and I mean, there was no lingering. There was nothing. But the other thing that's important is that Eric and John have such a good relationship.
They're neighbors,
right? They're back fences. They they share a fence. So it's just, I think that those things, you don't just throw those things away. Right. And I think what's happening to Bieniemy is that he's just Icarus, right? Like Andy Reid is the sun and he's just way too close to where he's not getting enough shine. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Roman will ever get a head coach job in this league. That's just me, but I do think Wink will. So if Roman's
B. James seems to think that Wink isn't going to get a head coaching job either. I wonder, B. James, my only question would be why.
Well, I can see why he would say that. I mean, look, he got a couple interviews last year and got no job offers. This year, you can get an interview despite the fact that he played so well.
Right. But if he keeps stacking seasons where he's first, his defense is first on these key indicators, I think it's only a matter of time that.
But I do think he's behind he's a little bit at a disadvantage being a defensive guy.
He's in the wrong era.
But at the same time, a couple seasons ago, we saw Vic Fangio get a head coaching job at 70 some years old as a defensive guy in Denver. So I do think that everyone tends, if you look around the league, they're adding offensive guys. I mean, they're going off the McVay tree, the Andy Reid tree. They're going off these offensive guys, and it's paying off in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to amend my statement. I'm going way back here, but the most surprising thing for me, I'm going to amend my statement in the draft would be the Ravens trade up in the first round
because they're limited in picks. Yeah.
And even still, I mean, how many times do we trade up? Like, I know we traded up to get Lamar, right? Like
traded back in, yeah,
we traded back in the first round. So yeah, we got rid of that second round pick and pretty much traded up. But that would be a big surprise.
Yeah, with limited picks, I think if we were a year where we see us having 10, 11 picks, or even 8 picks, then maybe, but not when we only have 6.
Do you think that the Orlando Brown issue with the combination of only having 6 picks will provide some ammunition or urgency behind Eric wanting to get a deal done, saying, dang, I want more than 6 picks. Maybe I'll move up. Imagine, when's the last time we had 2 first round? Well, obviously with Lamar, but like going into the draft, knowing we have 2 first round picks.
What, 96? I mean, I don't know. I know we had him in 96, but I don't know how far back.
Right. Look how that turned out.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. I mean, maybe the best first round in history of drafting when you get Ray Lewis and J.O. No doubt about that. But yeah, no, that would be shocking to see him go up. I think it wouldn't be surprising to see us go, up a small amount. Like if we were going from, staying in the 20s. But if you're talking about going anywhere above or below 15, then I would be absolutely stunned because you got to kick out some big capital. But what about Chris Madry's suggestion? Last one on the coaching, unless you have some more.
No, you're good.
What about say Harbaugh, and say Roman, same situation where Roman, it doesn't look well in the playoffs. Our defense plays their heart out, comes up short. Do you think there's any chance that Wink would be promoted to head coach and that we would see John and Roman leave?
I just don't see it. I don't see it. I mean, if it happened, this is the only way I would. I just said Wink's going to get a head coaching job, but one of the things that I would want to say to Wink Martindale, who's your offensive coordinator? Who do you know for sure is running your offense? Like, who can you call today and say, be my offensive coordinator, and he will be your offensive coordinator, or she?
Because, I'm sure he's got a plan. He's done interviews.
But if he doesn't have that guy in hand,
then
that's my only concern. That's my only concern there. What do you think about the prospect of Wink being the coach? I mean, I think culturally he is the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly would be able to teach him the Raven way, and he's and all that. But yeah, I guess has that move ever been done? I don't know if I've seen that move done in the pros where
Right.
they fire the head coach
And the
and
OC.
yeah, and then they promote. So it may be unprecedented, but I mean, look, I like Wink. I'm a John guy though, so I don't want to see, but I guess it's possible. It's certainly possible. And also, people are pointing out the extra picks. Yeah, there's obviously 1/3 round this year and 1/3 next year from David Culley, which I wasn't even aware of that rule until right when he was about to go. That's an insane rule. That's an awesome rule. To get that type of compensation for losing an important coach.
And I think it
He was
does
probably
two
our
things.
least, one of our lower important.
Right, absolutely. I think it solves two problems, right? Because it incentivizes teams to do things what we want them to do, and that's diversify their coaching staff, right?
Yeah, and also it helps for coaches like Harbaugh and like Tomlin who don't have their own, who aren't the system like a lot of these guys are, that if they do lose their assistants, which these guys do a lot, that they at least get something in compensation back. Yeah.
Certainly. Now I want to go off the beaten path here because I read an interesting article and I want to get your take on this. This
Okay.
has to do with the Ravens, guys, so stick with me. On NFL.com, an article was put up by our buddy Greg Rosenthal, and he ranked all the quarterbacks that have played in the Super Bowl in the modern era.
Okay.
So 63 quarterbacks, and he ranked their career accomplishments by all quarterbacks that have played in the Super Bowl, not just their Super Bowl appearances, but their career accomplishments.
Okay.
So of course the Ravens have 2 quarterbacks on there, and the Baltimore Maryland has 3 because of Johnny U. But this is my question to you off the bat. 63. Who's number 1?
Who's number 1?
I'm starting you off easy here.
Tom Brady.
Okay, good. You got that one. Just making sure your head's screwed on right there, Glenn. But now I'm going to give you a second to think. Who do you think is the worst quarterback to start a Super Bowl?
So it's not win, it's start.
Yeah. No, the losers on here too.
Rex Grossman is bad news. I got to say Rex Grossman's got to be down there. I got to say, was he dead last?
Dead last, dude. You got it, Rex Grossman, man.
Yeah, he's bad.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah, he was bad. I mean, it's hard because I'm just doing this off the top of my head. I'm surprised I got that one. But Brad Johnson, I'm sure, is on the lower half of that, although he's probably not anywhere near the bottom. But obviously, our guy here in Baltimore, Trent Dilfer, didn't do a whole lot outside of that Super Bowl run. I'm sure he's up there as well.
Brad Johnson is 45th. Trent Dilfer is 59.
Out of 63?
Out of 63. You think he's a little upset about that?
Maybe not.
I think he's kissing a Super Bowl ring is what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I know one thing. He's still upset he never got brought back to Baltimore the following year.
Now, let me ask you this. Brad Johnson is ranked 2 spots ahead of the one and only elite Joe Flacco. How you feel about that?
Oh, man, we like Joe, but let's be honest. His regular season numbers aren't nothing to be bragging about. So I can understand why he would make his way on that list. But Joe's a winner. Nonetheless, he never has to buy another beer in Baltimore, I'm sure.
Right.
But am I shocked that he's there? No, that doesn't really surprise me. He was never a big regular season guy. And some of that's from the fault of the systems he's had here in Baltimore, and mainly a run first system. But nonetheless, he's where he belongs.
Yeah. And then the last one, of course, reigning out of Baltimore, and number 2 on the list, Glenn.
Shout out.
Johnny Unitas.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is, and I think a big part of that has to do with the way that he revolutionized the way that football looks today. I think he had a lot of that.
He's credited with pretty much inventing the 2-minute drill.
Right.
And when he retired, he had virtually every meaningful quarterback record.
Right. So yeah, I shout out to him. Just really quickly here to run down the top 5. Of course, it's Brady and Unitas, and then after that, Montana, Manning, and this is interesting to me. Number 5 never won a Super Bowl. In fact, he only appeared in 1.
Marino.
Dan Marino.
Rookie year, I believe he made it.
Yeah, I think it was his rookie year.
Well, I mean, look, he gets a lot of love. Obviously, these guys are before our time. I heard a ton about these guys from my father, and big Johnny U guy, and But yeah, a little bit before our time, but nonetheless, pretty cool list. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you as well. And now, one thing I do want to clarify, getting back to our folks here that are watching the show. Let's see here. Nana Rave 8. We wanted to give you a shout out again here. She asked if we got any picks for Zachary Orr. And if I'm mistaken, the way that the rule works is that it's for coordinators and assistant head coaches.
Well, I think it's for if they get hired as a head coach, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. And he'd have to get hired. But even outside, I think it would have to be that position in one of those roles as well.
Maybe. I don't know exactly that.
And yeah, they have to get hired as a head coach. So no, because he's going from what, assistant linebacker coach to the linebacker coach.
Yeah.
Which shout out to him, man. His career ended abruptly and he's making a name for himself in the coaching ranks. That's awesome.
We were devastated, man, because he had such a good year before. I think he had like 150 tackles that year combined between solo and assisted. Absolute tackling machine before he was forced to hang him up. But yeah, he's a good one. But also, there's some other people pointing out we get comp picks for other guys. Absolutely. If Unique gets a monster deal elsewhere, if Judon gets a monster deal, we will be getting likely third, fourth round picks in compensation.
So we're not done yet, certainly.
No, absolutely.
No, most certainly of all. Now, this is the last question I want to ask you referring to this list. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to contribute. Joe Flacco is 47th. Okay. But a guy that's often linked to Joe Flacco, Mr. Matt Ryan. If you had to guess what his rank is, where you put him?
Well, he's got an MVP of the league regular season. That counts. I would say 15.
Okay, he's ranked 29th.
29th. Okay, maybe.
Yeah, and he's ranked ahead of Eli Manning.
Well, I can see that. Eli Manning, outside the 2 playoff runs, had a pretty pedestrian.
But man,
career.
That carries a lot of weight. Also ranked ahead of Steve McNair. But anyway, my point is this: he's 29th. He's 40. Joe's 47. I've asked this before, I think off air, but I want to know your answer. Whose career would you rather have?
Oh. I tell you what, I'd rather have Joe's because I don't could go to sleep at night if I was Matt Ryan after giving up a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's got to keep him up. I don't know if it's hard to take Joe's career. When you look at their regular seasons, it's hard. I mean, it's no argument. It's Matt Ryan,
right?
But everyone I've ever heard when they ask about what would you trade for a Super Bowl, they'd all trade all their individual accolades for that one thing, that one elusive thing, and that's the Lombardi Trophy. And not only did he win a Super Bowl, he did it as the MVP. He didn't do it as a guy who's just watching. He did it as the focal point and the main contributor of that. So I would take Joe Flacco's and his money he's earned and go to sleep very happily at night. But look, I mean, Matt Ryan's had a good career, but that loss was devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm going to second your comment and just say that he did it in historical fashion for the rest of it till the day he dies. He'll be able to say that, I threw 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions at that point, had never been done in a playoff run. I beat how many Hall of Famers, right? So in the wake of a Super Bowl was Andrew Luck beat him. Peyton Manning beat him on the road. Tom Brady beat him on the road, who are both in the top 5 of that list. And then he turned around and beat Colin Kaepernick, who was red hot at that point. So 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He really, did a lot for the Ravens. Everyone talks about him benefiting from our defense. Our defense was not the business that year.
No.
It was definitely all about the offense.
Still had some guys, but they weren't quite themselves anymore.
So I agree with you as well.
Where is Adam78 asks, where's Troy Aikman on that list? Do you have that list?
Aikman, yeah. Give me a second here. Let me find old Aikman.
There's a guy who no doubt he was a good player, but he definitely benefited from having a strong team.
Yeah, he is 15. Now, let me just tell you the people that I think are interesting that are in front of him. Frank Tarkenton is in front of him, and he had Fran
Tarkenton.
Sorry. I
just added your mouth.
Yeah, no. Fran Tarkenton went 0-3 in the Super Bowl. In Super Bowl appearances in front of Troy Aikman. Ben Roethlisberger is 1 spot in front of Troy Aikman. And then Bart Starr, Drew Brees, Roger Staubach, John Elway, Steve Young, Aaron Rodgers, and of course I already gave you the top 5, but number 6 is Brett Favre. So I don't know. I think there's an argument that Aikman could be a little higher.
Yeah, I think Aikman probably gets knocked down a little bit by the fact that Emmitt Smith's the all-time rusher.
Right.
Troy Aikman, I'm sorry, Michael Irvin is a Hall of Fame receiver, and that they had arguably the best offensive line in NFL history. But that could also be chicken or the egg. That could, I'm sure Troy Aikman deserves some credit on some of those guys. Yeah, however big, he deserves some credit, and certainly on Michael Irvin's career. He was the one throwing him all those footballs. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, I don't know. I think that list is it's interesting. I mean, I don't disagree with a ton of it.
Yeah, no, I don't think I do either. And I love that you nailed the Rex Grossman because he was hot garbage.
Hey, just out of curiosity, who's right above him?
Okay, let me see here. Right above Rex Grossman at 62 is David Woodley.
Who is David Woodley, and who did he?
I don't know, but he looks like David Hasselhoff.
Well, ain't nothing wrong with that. I mean,
and at least in this image, anyway, he looks a lot like Hasselhoff to me.
Yeah, I'm not from. Must be before our time, but yeah. I mean, look, Nana Rave seems to think Matty Ice. I mean, look, it was a team effort that they fell apart. But if they just got one first down, if they didn't get sacked at one point in that game and just kicked a field goal, which they were already in field goal range until the game is over. I mean, they just totally couldn't even get a first down. But I agree with you, Nana Rave. I think he's got a good shot at getting in the Hall of Fame because I don't think he's necessarily done anytime soon. And look, the guy puts up numbers. So I think by the end of his career, he's going to be top 10 in virtually every meaningful category.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what they do with him down there. And if his career is rejuvenated, he hits a second wind. It all depends on how he takes care of his body, how long he wants to play, and what that looks like, certainly. So it'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah. But what, let's see. I mean, do you want to keep going on this list? We do have some more questions about it.
Yeah, sure. So John Elway, it looks like it's another question. I believe he was in the top 15. Let me give you old Johnny L. Number 7 himself. John Elway
up there.
Yeah.
I want to know where he's at as a GM because to me, other than bringing Peyton Manning in, he hasn't been very good.
Yeah, John Elway is ranked 9th, appeared in 5 Super Bowls and won 2, lost 3. Right ahead of him is Steve Young, and then right ahead of him is Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
So
those are pretty good guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't. If I'm John Elway, he played in 5 Super Bowls, but to me,
I'm sure he's happy. I'm sure he doesn't give a damn where he's at on this stinking list.
He's got his 2 Super Bowls, and that's about it.
He's got a job that I'm pretty sure he will never get fired from. I mean, he is the Denver Broncos, so
right.
He can stay there as long as he wants.
No, absolutely. Now, to get back to the Ravens here, I want to talk about this before we wrap this thing up. Before we wrap it up, guys, though, if you got any questions, put them in. Mahomes is number 19, by the way, Daniel, and I think that only has him, at this point appearing in 1 Super Bowl. So if he's already 19 and he's that young, we can assume that it's going to go up.
Yeah, he's probably going to go up a little bit.
But look, if Lamar gets to a Super Bowl, even just one with his already career accomplishments, don't you think that if he gets there, say he loses, right? But just that he makes this list, being that he's the second unanimous MVP in NFL history, and he appeared in the Super Bowl, don't you think that would carry him weight to put him up pretty high already in that list, before his career's over?
You mean Lamar?
Yeah. Sorry. Who did I say?
No, you may have. I was probably reading, but yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. If he was but that's a big what if. I mean,
it's a when, baby.
No, I thought, he'd have to do it. I thought you were meaning like he's going to do it like next year.
It's happening, Glenn.
Okay, all right. I like your confidence. Yeah, that there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, what were you saying? You had a question to get back?
Yeah. So my as far as the Ravens go, we talked about what would surprise us. We talked about our draft priorities and things like that. But are there, in general, any off-season moves that if you get an alert on your phone, pops off, you're going to pick it up right away and call me and be like, dude, I did not see that coming. Is it a trade? Is it, what is it? What do you see as an uncharacteristic Ravens move that could happen?
Well, I mean, I don't know about if it could happen, but I have seen some stuff in here suggesting, and I haven't gotten into it, and I don't know the possibilities, but I have seen some suggestions that Von Miller might be somehow making his way, making himself available. I don't know if there's any chance that could be possible, but
Well,
that would certainly shock me.
Yeah, he's owed 18 million.
Okay,
and it's a team option. And apparently he's got some off-field issues that they have not disclosed.
That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there.
I mean, we've talked about some surprising. I mean, Julio Jones would absolutely blow my mind. If I saw we got Julio Jones in some sort of a deal, I would be stunned. I'd be ecstatic. I mean, I would be thrilled, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would be the one to me, because then no one can ever say that we don't have a number one receiver. I mean, it's Julio Jones.
Yeah, but it would still. I mean, I'm not so sure we've never had a
I guess that's true. We haven't drafted
right, exactly. Because
yeah.
we brought in some guys that played like that.
But in the past decade, Glenn, we've only had 3 receivers mount 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I mean, that's something. That is something.
It's been Torrey Smith, Steve Smith, and Mike Wallace.
Man, that last name is crazy to me.
Right?
Mike Wallace. I didn't think he hit 1,000.
Well, he did it all against the Steelers.
I know. Didn't he have like a 98-yard touchdown or something?
On that slant?
Yeah, he just took it.
Joe just put it on him and he took off, man. Shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. Chris Madry did point out that the Falcons GM says they're not planning on trading Ryan or Julio. And I did see that report as well. Now,
things change.
Things do change, but nonetheless, I'd be surprised if he comes out and adamantly says,
right,
not trading them, and then they end up trading them. That would be certainly surprising.
Now let me ask you this as well. Somebody made a comment. Hold on really quickly here. Okay. Will you guys be doing a mock draft? We will be doing tons of stuff around the draft. I think it was the same thing. Chris Madry as well was asking, same person there. Yeah. You know, if you go back and look last year at all the videos we did on the draft, look, we will be doing a full mock draft of the first round, you know, of every pick in the first round. We'll be doing a Ravens full mock draft. We're going to be bringing on some draft experts.
Yes.
We're going to be breaking down each position of need, what we consider to be position of need, and possibilities for the Ravens, linking up to rounds. Oh my gosh, we are going to nerd out on the draft. So don't you guys worry.
Yeah, I mean, we got so much planned for the draft. We're going to try. And look, we've been very lucky to get some of the guests that we've had on this show. Some people go, how the heck do you? We ask. That's all we do. We ask, and some are nice enough to say yes. But I think our plan is to, just like we do, bring on a member of the opposing team's media in preparation for the upcoming game. We'll be doing the same with each draft pick. So if they take a guy out of LSU, we're going to be looking to tap into some new LSU connections and find out, if just to get a better up close look and maybe get some behind the scenes intel on how the guy is as a person. Because typically what we see is only going to be a highlight reel, which everyone looks good in a highlight reel. Go ahead and look up Kyle Bowler's highlight reel. He looks great because it's a highlight reel. So yeah, I think that we will definitely we're excited. I mean, look, we're draft nerds. We love the draft, and we're definitely going to be look, if we can get Mel Kiper on here, I'm going to nerd out. I'm going to geek out. And I'm going to be the biggest fan. I might come dressed fully as Mel.
Just the hair.
Or Todd. Maybe I'll be Todd. I'll be Todd, and I'll argue with him. I mean, I think that would be absolutely hilarious. But yeah. And look, he only lives right up the street from me. So maybe I just got to go knock on the man's door so I can get him over here and get him on 410 Sports Talk. That's what I'm going for.
Bring him into the Martin residence.
Yeah, bring him in. I mean, we can cook over here, Jimbo. You know how we cook.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Throw down over here. So I'll get him a good meal. And nonetheless, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, that would be awesome. But yeah, we're definitely going to do our very best, like Glenn said, to get some awesome guests on and give you guys inside access.
And before you guys go, we will be going live, I believe, this Thursday on Ing Raven. I know you got a lot of our fans are fans of Ing Raven as well. We're going to be on his show this Thursday. Do you know
at 7, I believe.
Yeah, somewhere around 7:00. So be sure to check us out over there. Ing Raven's been on our show. This is our first time going on his.
And the cool thing is that he's already kind of let us both in on a little bit about what he's going to ask us. And Glenn and I haven't talked too much about how this whole thing started.
That's true.
And so we'll let you guys in a little bit into how this dynamic duo of all time was conceived. And so, we're really excited about that as well. It'll be a blast. But yeah, like Glenn said, I'm really excited as well to get into I'm glad you brought that up. To get into when we get draft picks, we're absolutely going to try and go to those schools, get their guests, get as much insight as we can, because that's one of the things we try and do is we want to get as granular and as in-depth as we can for all of you guys that are passionate about the Ravens, just like we are. Super, super excited about it. And we'll be doing live shows, not just for the first round.
Yeah, and also free agents too. If we bring in a big-time free agent, we're going to get on the horn. We're going to get an expert on that player and wherever he's coming from, and we're going to get a behind-the-scenes look on how exactly, or, what makes them and what they're good at, what their strengths, their weaknesses. And we did the same. When we had the Jaguars gone, we got a big intel on Unique. So yeah, absolutely. We're that's the one thing we like doing. I mean, we don't want to just give you our opinion. We want to give you the opinion of the people that see it up close and personal.
Right. Absolutely. So we appreciate you guys participating tonight. Had an absolute blast. Like we said at the beginning of the show, we're going to be doing this every Tuesday night. So make us a part of your Tuesday evening. And then what we're hoping to do is roll in some guests, roll in some familiar faces. Whether that's guys from the local media, guys from, NFL national media. So give us some suggestions as some names that you've seen on the show that you would like to see again. And then some names that you haven't seen on the show that you'd like to, now if you say Lamar Jackson, we got Joshua Harris, which I think is pretty
as
cool.
Close as you can get as personal coach. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah,
so
if you haven't seen those, check them out. We've had them on a half dozen times.
Absolutely. And Josh is a great listen, a great follow on Twitter as well. So yeah, be sure to check us out. Hit the subscribe button. We appreciate all the support today with the super chats. As I said before, if you ever have a really urgent question, want to get it answered, go ahead and put it in there and it shows up to where we can't miss it. And we look forward to linking up with you guys the rest of the week and